All right, today we're jumping into a part of the law that affects literally everyone, whether you know it or not. It's all about what happens when things go wrong. So welcome to our quick guide to tort law. So let's start with a puzzle. You've got someone slipping on a wet floor, a nasty rumor spreading on social media, and a college hazing that ends in tragedy. I mean, these things seem worlds apart, right? An accident, some gossip, and a dangerous ritual. But in the world of law, there's a single idea that ties them all together. And that idea is called a tort. It's a French word that literally just means a wrong. At its core, tort law is the legal system's answer to a simple problem. When someone's wrongful act hurts you, the law needs to provide a solution, a remedy. And usually that remedy comes in the form of money to compensate for the harm done. I know. Tort law sounds kind of formal and complicated, but it really boils down to just two fundamental ideas. One, somebody did something wrong. Two, the person who was harmed by that wrong deserves to be compensated. It's really that simple. It's about making things right and hopefully preventing that same wrong from happening again. Okay, so when we start digging into these wrongs, the law presents us with a fork in the road. There are basically two main paths you can go down, and it all hinges on what was going through the person's head when they acted. Did they mean to do it, or was it just carelessness? So on one side of that fork, you have intentional torts. This is where there's fault and intent. The person either wanted the harm to happen, or they knew it was pretty much guaranteed to happen because of their actions. On the other side, you have unintentional torts, which we almost always just call negligence. Here, there's still fault, but there's no intent. The person didn't mean to hurt anyone, but they weren't careful enough. Let's explore that first path for a minute. The intentional torts. These are the situations where the harm was no accident. It was done on purpose. A really common example, one you see all the time these days, is defamation. This is all about wrongfully damaging someone's good name by spreading lies about them. It's a big deal because the law recognizes that your reputation has real value, and it gives you a way to fight back when someone tries to destroy it with falsehoods. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The law actually splits defamation into two types depending on how the lie was spread. If it's written down or in some other permanent form like a video, it's called libel. And because that can spread so far and wide, the law often just assumes it caused harm. But if the lie is just spoken, that's slander. And for slander, you often have a higher hill to climb. You might have to prove you lost actual money because of it. But listen, this doesn't mean every insult or nasty comment is a lawsuit waiting to happen. There are some major defenses. The biggest one, the truth. If what was said is true, it's not defamation. End of story. There are also protections for things said in official places, like a courtroom. And for public figures, it's a really high bar. They have to prove the person knew the statement was false, which is called actual malice. Okay, let's go back to that fork in the road and check out the other path, negligence. This is the whole world of unintentional harm, of accidents and carelessness. And it's all judged by this really fascinating legal idea of the reasonable person. So if you want to prove someone was negligent, you have to prove four specific things in order. Think of it like building a chain with four links. First, duty. You have to show the person owed you a duty to be careful. Second, breach. You have to prove they broke that duty. Third, causation. You've got to link their carelessness directly to your injury. And finally, damages. You have to show you were actually harmed. If even one of those links is missing, the whole chain breaks and the case fails. So how do we decide if someone breached their duty? Well, the courts use what's called the reasonable person standard. Now, this isn't a real person. It's a hypothetical, objective, careful person. The jury is basically asked, what would a normally careful, prudent person have done in this exact same situation? It's the ultimate yardstick for our behavior. Let's make this more concrete. How does a court even figure out if a duty of care exists in a situation? A really powerful and tragic case called Bogenberger v. Pi Kappa Alpha shows us exactly how this works. So this case involved a student who died from alcohol poisoning at a fraternity hazing event. The big question for the court was, did the fraternity have a duty to protect him? In its ruling, the Illinois Supreme Court said something that gets right to the heart of negligence. We all have a duty to protect people from the foreseeable results of our actions. And really, the entire case turned on that one word, foreseeable. The court said, look, someone dying or being seriously injured from being forced to drink huge amounts of alcohol, that isn't some bizarre freak accident.
It is, unfortunately, a reasonably foreseeable consequence. And because the harm was foreseeable, the fraternity had a duty to prevent it. They didn't, and that was the breach.
So, whether we're talking about an intentional act or a negligent one, once a case is proven, what's next? Well, now we get into the aftermath, calculating the damages and seeing if the defendant has any last-ditch defenses. When it comes to damages, there are two main flavors. The most common are compensatory damages. The goal here is simple: to make the victim whole again, to compensate them for things like medical bills, lost paychecks, and even pain and suffering. Then you have punitive damages. These are different. Their goal isn't to compensate, it's to punish the wrongdoer for truly awful behavior and to send a message to society: don't do this.
But what if you're a little bit at fault for what happened to you? Let's take a classic example. You're at a baseball game, you're looking at your phone, and bam, you get hit by a foul ball. Can you sue the baseball team?
This is where a very important defense called assumption of risk comes in. The basic idea is that if you willingly walk into a situation that you know has certain risks, you can't really complain when one of those exact risks happens. You knew the deal.
And this isn't just a theory. It happened in a real case where a fan sued the Seattle Mariners after getting hit by a ball. The court pretty much said, nope, she was a fan, she knew that baseballs can fly into the stands, that's part of the game. By choosing to be there, she voluntarily assumed that inherent risk. So you can see, from a careless mistake to a deliberate lie, tort law is this invisible set of rules that governs how we interact with each other every single day. And it leaves us with a really big question to think about, one that goes way beyond any courtroom. In this busy world where we are constantly interacting, what is our real duty of care to the people around us? It's definitely something to consider. Thanks for tuning in.